Let's order some Chinese and talk about my penis, please. Welcome to the Cookie Bachelor Show. Welcome to the baptized machine, everyone. My name is the Wall Street Bitch. I'm thinking about changing my name, first of all. This is going to be a big decision for me. But I was told that it's dumb. And here's Hans. But I was told that it's dumb. And I might need to change my name.
Why were you thinking about changing your name?
Because I was told that our names are dumb.
Who said our names are dumb?
A lot of people.
Like who?
A lot of people said they're dumb.
Female in nature?
Yep, female, male, just people saying they're dumb.
Is my name's dumb or just your name's dumb?
Just both of our names dumb.
Wow, that's the first I've heard of this.
I know.
You are a Wall Street bitch. I'm never changing my name. I heard people think my name's really cool.
Who said that?
Pretty much everyone. Jason, the stock guy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty much all the cool people. Do you want to hear some drama?
All right, sorry, we're back in action here. I'm just trying to get this camera. Okay. Welcome back to the Baptized Machine, everyone. Sorry for that delay here. We've got a great episode for you today. We're going to kick it off with a little shizbit, shimmy sham from Hans and myself. We're going to...
Or let the dog out. Keep going. Just give a little overview of the podcast. I got some cases coming.
Okay, so if you can hear me over this outlandish racket, can you bring the salsa out here? Okay, sorry about that. So the rest of the episode is going to be very exciting, okay? We have a world-renowned journalist coming on, Peter Laffin, okay? He's written some great stuff. He was on the episode that we interviewed the shaman for the first time, and he did a great job at bridging the gap between the shaman's crazy ideas and the establishment's crazy ideas. Yeah, these dogs are out of control here. So yeah, we're excited for that. In the meantime, I guess I'll go through ads. Fast forward, our first advertiser is Happy Dose Co. Okay, this is an excellent all-natural supplement company. The information will be in the bio. They have a great affiliate program. I take their cordyceps mushrooms and their ginkgo biloba. This is their ginkgo. They got a bunch of great stuff. Get your health and wellness into check. You need to be purchasing third-party tested for heavy metals, all that good stuff. Companies like that, like Happy Dose. So if you use the discount code, the Baptized Machine, you will get 40% off. I believe it's 40% off. So that's a
great deal. Wow.
Yeah, 40. And what do we got here today, Hans?
We got a mark
that you ordered?
Yeah.
We are rich. We are rich. This is advertising money.
Yeah, you could pour it up for us. What else do we got?
Wow, look at this. So, any updates from the week before we kick this off?
Not too much.
Oh, did you hear about touch on this, the massive Chinese cyber attacks that happened today?
Oh, I haven't heard what happened. Oh, wait.
They're so bad.
Before this, look at this dude, Side King Hustle. He tweeted this thing. He tweeted this thing that was like, would you rather get $50 a month or $1 million one time?
Wait, $50 a month? $50 a month for...
Shit, it might be hard to drink. Yeah, $50 a month for the rest of your life, or... I'm ready to get mouth a little more.
Just $50 a month for the rest of your life?
Take 1,800 years to get $1 million. And he's going to come...
What a fucking idiot.
And I go, well, could you answer this question? He goes, I'll give my answer on the podcast. And he goes, want to do Thursday? So should I say next day?
Sure, bro.
Or next Tuesday? I'm gone next
He
Thursday.
must have...
Will you be here next Tuesday? Let's do that.
I will be here next Tuesday. He must have fucked up his thinking around this.
Yeah, he thinks so. He's like a investment guy. He just got one of those like profiles that's like, follow me and get $500. I doubt I'll listen to it, so I need to totally roast
There
him when he comes
and
on.
I hope he's listening to this because you'll have your time to come on and defend yourself if you want. But there is an epidemic of fake bullshit gurus who come on and try to teach people how to make money because people jump.
Can read through that shit.
No, people can't, dude. They jump at the opportunity and they end up buying some course or whatever, and they get completely scammed. They waste a year of their life. And hey, I don't know this guy. Maybe he knows what he's talking about, but if the guy teaching you how to get followers and views doesn't have followers or views or money, then it's bullshit. What's going on here? No, I'm good. I'm good. All right, so that was Happy Dose, our other sponsor. Looney Raccoony, Avocado Salsa. You want to be a sponsor of the podcast? We got great returns, baby. Hit us up at the Baptize. Is it the Baptize?
It's just Baptize Machine Podcast.
Baptize Machine Podcast at gmail.com.
Or like tweet us as well. We're just gonna still find us.
Yeah. Oh, Peter, are we going live for this? 100%. Peter Laffin goes deep. He's late. I don't see it.
Peter, where are you?
I don't think you started the live.
I did start the live.
This is so good. Where'd you get this?
Torchy's Tacos. Pretty good, right? Did I message it?
You're not live.
I am. It says I am right here. Here, I'll post. I maybe have to post. Here we go.
There we go.
I'm live.
All right. For our live viewers, who are just hopping on now, we're about to interview the great Peter Laffin. We're also drinking fresh margaritas, chips, salsa, and tacos. So thank you.
Wow.
These margaritas are really good.
Yeah, it's from Torchy's Tacos. They're not a sponsor, but we would love them to be one.
Yeah, saddle up.
Yeah.
Pony boy?
You said be right there, browser updating. All right, great. So we're going to have Peter Laffin in studio tonight. He works for the, I think the Washington Examiner, maybe the National Examiner. We'll ask him to confirm. He was on our first episode with Jake and Jelly Chansley, the shaman.
Yeah, he did a really great job at bridging the gap between Jake's crazy ideas and the establishment crazy ideas, you know?
Yeah, these chips are good. That's good queso.
This is great queso. I'm sorry if this is distracting, but honestly, I don't give a fuck, okay?
Better we eat before a guest comes on, too. Always best practice.
True.
Yeah.
True, best practices.
You're live. Yeah, but best practice is your podcast, dude.
Yeah,
Listen
definitely.
to the Baptize Machine.
Also, okay, so back to this Chinese cyber attack. Apparently, there's rumors flying around all over the place, but these attacks have been underway for 5 years. This is typical of the Chinese. They embed themselves long.
This is related to the immigrants crossing the border, the Chinese immigrants crossing the border, the cyber attacks.
Imagine.
If they're all related. That's how they're infiltrating, because they got to be near the servers.
Imagine.
Like, we theorized last time they were going to just marry our women. But what if, like, they just need to get near the servers to hack our government websites? Like, what are they hacking? I haven't heard about this at all, honestly. I'm just all... what I say is all hearsay.
Hey, anything could be possible now. Seriously.
Well, the border crossing is real, but, like, as far as the hacking, I have no idea.
No, it came out today, and apparently it's unprecedented hacking to the point where major systems are going to have to possibly be shut down. And the FBI is being pretty blunt.
Like, with banking systems? What kind of systems?
I don't know. I honestly heard about it on my way over here. So maybe we should do a quick Goog.
Were you listening on NPR?
It was, I think, the New York Post. Just type in Google News. Oh my god.
Did you order pizza? Is that what that is? Or?
No.
Stop barking, dogs.
I'm not even seeing anything about this.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. Well, maybe we'll ask Pete about it when he joins.
Major Chinese hack on foreign office. Hey!
These dogs are crazy tonight.
Yeah, Chinese hackers spent 5 years in U.S. infrastructure ready to attack. Okay, so this happened last week.
Interesting. Should we let Peter in?
Yeah, let's let him in.
Hello, Peter. Welcome back to the Baptize
What's going on,
Machine.
guys? Sorry about that. It made me re-download Chrome, update it.
Oh, no
before I
worries.
could get it.
Welcome.
Yeah, they've been giving a lot of like AI updates to this app, so
That's my nightmare for every single interview.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time. We enjoyed speaking with you last time with the shaman. That was fun.
Oh, that was crazy. I love that.
Yeah.
That's like one of those things you wake up in the morning, you just don't expect that to come into your life. That was
I know.
amazing. What an
Yeah, dude,
experience.
I was saying, I think you did such a good job at like level setting with him and sort of connecting with the ideas of his that you did agree with in order just to have like a cool dialogue, you know? Because can't even talk to the crazy ideas. I think you did a great job at like keeping the conversation going and you know, challenging certain things. It was
I
interesting.
really appreciate you saying that. He seemed like a genuinely pretty cool guy, but I have to admit, in the back of my mind, it was like, okay, this could get out of hand at any moment too. So there was kind of like this peacekeeping thing that I had going on inside of me too, talking to him. And yeah, he was saying a bunch of things I didn't agree with. And that was it was an interesting learning moment for me, because it's like, you know, should you challenge, if you are put in front of the QAnon shaman randomly one day, should you challenge him? And you know, what's the journalistic responsibility there?
Right.
So yeah, I think I was like, okay, I feel a little like just kind of knocked off kilter, so I just want to connect. Not everything he said was crazy.
Right.
Yeah, some of it's very reasonable. Yeah, we got our first haters from that for platforming him, which was interesting. So, but it's also just like he's gonna speak somewhere.
I was surprised that you were doing it. I was actually kind of inspired by the fact that you did it. Platforming, that word is one of my least favorite words. It's like, here's another one, is centering. Centering, platforming. There's this obsession with turning ugly verbs or ugly nouns into ugly verbs. And yeah, I understand what you're saying with, you know, what's the responsibility here of giving somebody a chance to talk. I think the reflex, the instinctive reflex to shut down conversation is new. People who are just coming of age, I don't think they realize, I can say this as an old man, I'm 40 now, that, you know, when I was in college, that was not
Happy 40th. I don't know when it was, but happy birthday, belated.
But it's a new reflex.
Yeah.
That we our first instinct is to shut it down.
Right.
And to me, when I was growing up, the people who engaged in censorship and worrying about giving somebody else a platform, that was all the Christian right. That was all evangelical Christian stuff.
Right.
Censoring my favorite rap album.
Right.
And to see censorship be tossed across the aisle in my lifetime, it's one of the weirdest experiences that I've had.
Yeah, why do you think that happened?
Wasn't Tippi Gore all about the censorship, though? She was Democrat, Al Gore's wife. I think her name was Tippi.
Yes.
Is that it? Yeah.
So I think it has all to do with shifting power dynamics.
Yeah.
And the fact that Tipper Gore paid lip service to censorship, I think, says a lot about who was powerful at that time. Censorship about indecent material, rap music, stuff like that. Yeah. And now we're in this really weird place with the cultural left, because the cultural left is the power. It is the power center in all of our major cultural institutions. in our news media, in our entertainment industry, in our colleges. You can't even apply to college today without pledging loyalty to a very particular political revolution in an application DEI state. Yeah, you can't apply to any college of repute in America without signing on to the idea of, I think equity is a good idea.
Interesting.
So you imagine that you literally can't apply to college. You can't apply for a job. So all of the power from every major cultural institution we have that's non-religious, and even some of the religious ones, it's all the cultural left dominates now. And so any force that is dominant, its natural instinct is to suppress the other side.
Right.
So in the late 90s, that was probably the peak, the end of the evangelical era, Christian right era of cultural dominance. And so as that cultural force became less powerful, that's all of a sudden when it decided it really loved free speech, because it needs free speech.
Right.
It needs free speech in order to get into the public conversation.
Interesting.
So yeah, I think the fact that that's shifted across the aisle is really just a reflection of where the power center is.
But also the landscape has totally shifted since the 90s, right? Like social media has shifted like power structures across the world so significantly. I mean, I recently watched that that documentary. I forget what it's called, but it's about social media's effect on the world, and it talks about small uprisings in small countries in Africa that were possible because of Facebook. So the information, like false information, can really gain serious power on social media. The question is, like, is it worth putting restrictions on what people say in order to prevent against that? Like, I don't think it is.
So yeah, I don't either. And the reason I don't is because I have so much distrust for our cultural power, our power institutions. I have so much distrust built up for our news media, so much distrust of our government, so much distrust of our corporate industries, of corporate America. People who control all of these levers of power, I don't think any of them should be given the power to regulate speech.
Right.
And it's not to say that I don't think that, like you're saying, social media can really accelerate dangerous and bad ideas that are really unhealthy, really, really awful. I see it everywhere across the political spectrum.
Right.
I don't know who is qualified, or and if you think of yourself as qualified to regulate the speech of the world, I'm kind of already afraid of you.
Yeah. Right. True.
Yeah.
Because they're saying you have this, they're in the what was it called? Biden's Disinformation Governance Board, I think it was.
Yeah.
Which lasted like 1 month because everybody thankfully laughed it off the planet. You can't seriously, like, we say everything's Orwellian, and so that word has lost its power, but that was genuinely Orwellian.
Yeah.
There was just this narcissism emanating from that whole endeavor that was just totally intolerable. I don't know who thinks that they are capable of saying what's out of bounds and what isn't. And so, I like you err on the side of, well, I guess we got to let everybody talk, even if occasionally it's dangerous.
Yeah, and I think things like community notes on X has been helpful. Like maybe that's the place of some kind of AI tool that steps in and like just corrects people with straight facts. But even that can be biased sometimes, So
Peter, I'm curious.
Just on that really quick. I've done just like experimenting on ChatGPT and things like that. Ask it political questions. You can get the sense that they're changing its mind through conversation, like it's acquiescing to you. Yes. So there's some really spend a half hour asking deep moral questions to ChatGPT.
It doesn't generate certain image props for me anymore now.
Oh, interesting.
Which is interesting.
Yeah, there's some guardrails.
Yeah, there's been some more guardrails added that used to not be there. So I've been using it for probably like 3 years. Yeah.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah. This is all really interesting because the era we live in now with Trump possibly being elected for the second time, I don't think this environment would, or Trump even being a contender would even be possible without social media. I'm curious. I have no idea what is your thoughts for the 2024 election? Do you have someone that you're voting for? Or are you sort of just up in the air right now? I'm an RFK Jr. fan.
I wouldn't call myself an RFK Jr. fan, but if you put it to me today, who are you going to vote for? I'm voting for Kennedy, because that he is my middle finger to this country that gave me this disaster that I have to, out of loyalty to either like one really culty, insane, totally unhinged faction of America, or I have to, pledge my loyalty again to the other side, which I think is a culty, strange, totally just. I'm disgusted by having to pick one side or the other. I find so distasteful.
I know.
I think Kennedy will get on the ballot in more. Yeah, isn't he only on one state right now?
I think he's on more than one, but I'm not sure if he has that every state.
The Democratic Party is currently issuing lawsuit after lawsuit against Kennedy.
That's so fucked up.
Well, because democracy's on the ballot. These people are just absolutely grotesque.
It's more shocking to me that Biden is running again than Trump, honestly. Like, what are the Democrats doing? Why are they putting him up again? I really don't get it.
Didn't he say he'd be a one-term president, too?
Yeah, he ran on that. Pretty much, yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
I have many thoughts on this. I think he's a creature of Washington. He's somebody who would absolutely never give up power. And I think at this point, he actually has if I'm just being a cynical political observer, I think he has some good arguments to be the nominee. The other potential nominees are not polling as well as Biden. Biden is the strongest right now running in those polls. And I know the polls are much maligned. I know that nobody believes polls anymore. The polls are accurate. They're within a margin of error. They're within 3 to 5 points. And there are better polls than other polls. And all the polls that you see coming out of it, the head-to-head or the five-way matchup with Trump versus Biden. Today, there was a few that came out. Here's Trump versus Newsom in a few states. Here's Trump versus Gretchen Whitmer in a few states. Trump is, I think he was beating Newsom by like 15 points in Pennsylvania. Trump is a really, really powerful political force. And I think we're beginning to see Biden even becoming underrated as a political force.
Oh, okay.
Which is interesting, because he's been pretty overrated for so long. But I find both of them so distasteful, and both of their movements and both of their voters, and so I'll be lifting my RFK middle finger. And I don't expect that he'll win. I'll be voting in the state of Connecticut.
Yeah,
I'm sure Joe Biden's going to win that, so I don't know what my vote counts for anyway. But I'll make my voice for RFK probably.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. That's interesting that you say that Biden is sort of going to be the unassumed underdog, and it's also fascinating how much power Trump has gained just since all these indictments.
Yes.
It just says a lot about America, like we're really pissed off, and I hope the establishment is like starting to understand that now.
So, like I was saying earlier about the cultural power sort of shifting, right now, cultural progressivism is the dominant force in every major cultural institution that is not religious. In just that way, the Democratic Party. Are we live right now? Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's totally fine. I'm tripping over my thought.
No worries. Not many people are watching.
I appreciate that. And I'm sure you guys are doing great too. I've seen your followers shoot up in the last few weeks. It's just been
so crazy. We have no idea why.
We're slowly growing, which is good.
That's awesome. So, what I was saying about Biden and Trump. Honestly, I can't remember. You're just going to have to edit that.
That's right.
I'm sorry.
I was curious what you thought about the immigration bill that the Democratic Congress was trying to pass, and the narrative was kind of spun in the media. I don't know how true. I haven't looked into it at all, but
this is one area.
It was the most conservative bill that would ever be passed by Democrats. So I feel like they're slightly trying to transition to being more moderate than they have been in the past few years. Maybe even AOC. I don't know if you saw that video of the NYPD dance team.
I did. Yeah.
And she made fun of that. Republicans and Democrats are what? This is why we're funding the police? What is this?
Yeah. The immigration bill, I'm genuinely conflicted. I wish I had sort of a stronger view of it. Mm-hmm. I know that the numbers of people coming across the border, the amount, they measure it by the amount of contacts that the border security agents have with people trying to come across the border, up into the hundreds of thousands per month. I did a column on this a few months ago. The amount of people who come across the border each month, it fills 4 or 5 Yankee stadiums. We don't know anything about where these people are going. We don't really know who they are. My guess, just by sort of looking at pictures, though it's hard to get a real sense of things by pictures, is that most of these people are genuine asylum seekers. And that we have to me, I'm a Christian. I want to talk about that tonight. I feel it's my moral duty to welcome in people who are suffering and are trying to escape violence and poverty. But at the same time, in an age of, there's a capacity for immense terror. It would be it's just so frighteningly easy, it seems, to come across our southern border. It seems that there has to be something done to protect us so that we know who's coming in here. That's not a hateful, bigoted thing to say. Mm-hmm. I favor immigration. I favor, what you think of as the high wall, big door policy. I want there to be really strong security so that we know who's there and we know who's coming. But I also want the door to be very big so we let in as many people as possible.
Yeah.
This, by the way, Trump in 2016, when he brought up immigration and he said, I'm going to build a wall, what was the reaction of the left-wing cultural power centers? Which is, you're a racist, you're an awful person. Yeah. Trump had his finger on the button on this one. Yeah. And the left, you're starting to see as, they are sort of morphing in their policy right now. Yeah. Even Biden was flirting with reinstalling the Remain in Mexico policy before this bill came. Really, what was thought of as really right-wing xenophobic stuff is suddenly really mainstream. And because of that, I guess I do think that this is a pretty cynical move on the part of Republicans who really want this to be.
That's kind of my initial thought.
They want this issue to be really live and really hot by the time November rolls around, because it's such an obvious slam dunk win politically for the Republicans.
Right.
Because you couldn't even talk about border policy 7 years ago without being, that was the beginning of cancel culture, sort of. You couldn't even bring that up without being pushed out of the discourse.
Trump is loving that the border is a mess right now. Absolutely. He's probably hoping it continues that way.
Yeah, I have no doubt. It's one of the uglier aspects of our politics that more than either side tries to present a positive case for why their ideas are right, they're more concerned with the other side failing. I think we see this phenomenon. It's the most ugly when there's a mass shooting. What happens immediately on social media when there's a mass shooting? Everybody scrambles to find out who the identity of the person is. We don't think about
true.
who's the identity of the person. And I'm going like this, hoping that it's the other political side, so that I can put my finger and say,
that's so true.
That's kind of
and
fucked
so
up.
on this issue, on immigration, I think the other side just wants to be able to point at the other side and say, you failed us, so I should be rewarded. It's this awful, dumb cycle that we're in on every issue. But I think that's what drove the Republicans to reject this bill. The bill's not perfect, too. Let me say, on defense of some of those Republicans who denied this, the bill is not.
Yeah.
I do not think it did enough for border security. I think it did as much as you could possibly expect in a bipartisan bill.
Right.
But for me personally, no, I think we need to secure the border.
Yeah.
Absolutely secure the border. We're in an age of China pushes a lot of fentanyl across the southern border. We haven't had on our land a terrorist attack from a Muslim extremist in the last 20 years. We forgot what that is.
Yeah.
And let me say Islamist extremists, not Muslim extremists. I do think that distinction matters. Islamicist.
I mean, I was on a 7-day river trip on the Rio Usumacinta, Guatemala and Mexico, and we had to start 50 kilometers north because the Mexican government, or like upriver, because the Mexican government had closed down the town we were originally going to stay in because it was like run over by cartel, and then the citizens, the rest of the cartel, are posing as police officers because they're doing border crossings there. But then as we're going down the river the first 3 days on the border, you just see like the cartel dudes, there'd be like 3 boats of them, 2 guys on each boat with 30 immigrants, all in bright orange PFDs as we're rowing by in our inflatable rafts or in these old wooden motorboats just crossing, just going farther downriver to do the border crossing from Guatemala to Mexico.
Yeah, and it probably is mostly asylum seekers, but the fact that there is no type of security whatsoever is extremely dangerous. Like there's definitely bad people coming across. Like there has to be, even if the numbers are not as much as the right is exclaiming about. If you're having the size of, a baseball stadium come in every single day, even 10, 20 people out of that, it adds up, and it's not good.
Yeah.
No, it just takes one really bad guy. It was interesting you said bad guy. That was another phrase that Trump, who I have no love for, so I'm not defending it. But Trump in 2016 got in a lot of trouble for. He said there's a lot of bad hombres coming across that.
Yeah.
And people went crazy at that. I have to say again, I went crazy at that. I was like, no, racist.
Me too.
That wasn't. He was right about that. I think Democrats are doing the right thing by kind of acknowledging that now.
Well, and I want to acknowledge this cultural shift too, because when I was growing up, it was against the norm. I would say against the norm to be super liberal, left wing. All the cool kids in high school and college was their thing. Now I'm seeing younger people shift, and you're seeing characters like Andrew Tate. Obviously, a lot of young people like Donald Trump now. Like big influencers like the Nelk Boys are supporting Donald Trump. There's a massive shift. And with that is coming a rebirth of Christianity in young people, and a shift in political ideas. But it's not the same right that it used to be. I definitely jive with a lot more of their ideas than I would have, back then. What do you think about this shift? Like, is it good that the pendulum is sort of swinging back away from the ultra woke ideology?
Well, yeah, that was toxic poison from go.
Yeah.
And let me just say this now that we're out of that mass hysteria, everybody who engaged in that and forced that on other people threats in the workplace or what have you, you should be ashamed of yourselves. You should be ashamed of yourselves that you were attempting to indoctrinate, inculcate, and threaten people into thinking exactly like you. And I want to be really clear about that. That if you engaged in that, you should be apologizing. That was the most. I've seen a lot of political movements. I've been paying close attention in my life. That was the most illiberal. That was the most illiberal 3 or 4 years that I've ever experienced in America.
Under a flag of equity, which made it that much worse, you know?
Insanity.
Like,
pure insanity. And really mean-spirited and ugly. And let me say this too, above all, just dumb. Just not that interesting. That was always the dirty secret of the woke thing, was that there really wasn't much to it outside of social coercion. Anybody who understood the history of ideas, anybody who's understood where ideas like those have been implemented in the world, anybody who is genuinely attempting to encounter these ideas and do something interesting with it, they were all laughing in the inside at these woke people. They weren't laughing on the outside.
Yeah, they weren't allowed to.
Mm-hmm. I was afraid. There was a lot at stake. But that was, most of all, it was uninteresting, dull, repetitive nonsense. And praise God that it's over. That being said, thank you for platforming me today and giving me the chance to say that.
Of course.
I think what we forgot about kids, particularly what the woke thing misunderstood and forgot about kids, is that kids are natural rebels. Kids rebel against what they're told. And not since the 1950s, if it even happened then, in America, was there a system that was designed with the express intent of making people conform to a specific set of ideas, a specific set of behaviors. It was the most conformist movement in American culture, at least since the 1950s. And I don't know how much the 1950s really were about that. And where you're seeing kind of the pendulum shift now, I think has a lot to do with the natural rebellious instinct of young people. They don't want to conform at heart. They don't want to go along with the crowd at heart. That's what liberalism used to be.
Yeah.
One of the absolute strangest, just total loss of its own values that you'll ever see a value system go through is that suddenly being a conformist was liberal. It just made no sense. You're putting yard signs. People are putting yard signs in their yard with what I like to call the secular Apostles' Creed. It was just a religious statement. In this home we believe, here's the 8 things. I'm professing my faith. I'm saying I'm on the good team.
Wow.
I'm saying I'm one of the good guys. I'm conforming utterly, completely, to the point where I'm putting it on my yard.
Right.
Just in case you walk by, you know that I'm one of the good ones. It's impossible to say it's impossible to really say how much everybody lost their minds on this. And it's not to say also that there weren't real issues to talk about. It was just the way this snowballed was so creepy and weird.
And COVID sort of intensified everything.
Yes.
That definitely had a huge part in it.
Yes, I think that COVID was just a few steps too far for people who had already undergone some seriously traumatic events, whether it was the Trump election or a few other things. And it was just like COVID was the end. Now we're absolutely falling into line, and we're going to threaten anybody who does it. So what you're seeing in young people today, and I can say this because this is something I've dug into the numbers a lot when it comes to religion and Christianity. Me particularly, I'm a Catholic convert. I converted to Catholicism when I was 24 years old. I was an atheist before then.
What made you convert?
Oh, that's a long story. What you're seeing is there is a real hunger for what we call traditional liturgy. And traditionalism, which I think can have its sort of warts too. I think Andrew Tate is a wart. of this. But I think people, the sort of sudden desire for traditional worship, traditional maybe cultural norms, is something like the same reason everybody bought record players 15 years ago, even though CDs were technically better. We want everything so digitized and dehumanized and impersonal that we want the authentic thing. We want the real thing. Young people in particular, they see this really authentic experience of the faith life. This is what my ancestors did. This is what's been going on for thousands of years, and I'm playing my role in it. That is very compelling and attractive, I think, in the social media age, in the digital age. Kids spend 8 to 10 hours a day staring at a screen. There's a real authentic experience there that I think is attractive.
Yeah, I saw something that was trending recently is walking without headphones, and the kid was talking about it like it was some new idea.
That's insane.
They're just like, my girlfriend told me about this new trend where you just you leave your phone at home, and it just shocked me. But yeah, people are, especially kids, are searching for authenticity, and I think the older you get, sometimes the easier it is to lose that. So
absolutely. Right now we're in the period of Lent. I don't know if you saw everybody with charcoal on their faces last week.
Yeah, Valentine's Day.
And we do this. We give something up for Lent. That's what you always hear. It's very popular now for people to give up social media for Lent or restrict screen time. I think the reason there is we're such over consumers today, and information we overconsume. I overconsume information.
It's hard not to.
We want to say no. I want to give that up for now. I want to sacrifice that for now, because what I want to be able to do is hear the voice of God inside of me when I pray, and not constantly have my mind pulled, to have 20 tabs open. And
the present moment.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what a lot of us are doing in Lent right now, and you can see why that would be attractive to young people.
Yeah, definitely. So you wanted to talk about prayer and your experience with Christianity. Is there anything? I'm fascinated with prayer because I recently saw some studies about the outcome of prayer, and I watched this other video that was sort of talking about how to pray correctly is sort of sitting in gratitude for what you currently have, not asking for more. But yeah, I'd love to hear your take on that.
I've been eager to talk to you guys about this. I forget who posted it on social media, but it was one of you, and you said something like, "Convince me to pray." Is that right?
Oh yeah, something like that. Yeah.
What was that?
I'll pray tonight or something. Yeah, we'd have to look it up.
I mean, I think I might identify as a Buddhist, and I think prayer is pretty similar to meditation, except prayer is more of an outward practice of gratitude towards something other than yourself. Or I guess meditation could be as well. It could be towards an object or a feeling outside of yourself, or even a person or relationship. So I think they're pretty similar. But I don't really know the difference.
And I have a lot of reverence for Buddhism. I especially the Eastern religions, I really do love, and I find Taoism particularly compatible with my faith. But Buddhism, to a degree as well. There are some beliefs. There are some beliefs at the foundation of Christianity and Buddhism that you can't center, you can't square the circle.
Yeah.
But a lot of the practice is compatible.
Yeah, I think the end goal is compatible to, do good to others, have good karma, same thing.
Well, that's interesting that you said Taoism is comparable to Catholicism. I'd love to hear how.
And there were many people would say some really great 20th century Catholic thinkers who really think that Zen Buddhism and Catholicism are compatible. One is a real hero of mine. His name was Thomas Merton, and I would encourage all of your listeners to crack open a book written by Thomas Merton. later in his life, he wrote more and more about Eastern mysticism and its compatibility with Catholicism, and it stretches the boundaries, I think, of what can actually be done there. But it's a really cool exercise.
Yeah, my understanding is that the Zen Buddhists believe that all of them, you don't need to do things to be enlightened because you already are enlightened, and you need to stop those thoughts that are stopping you from being enlightened. Whereas like my Yayan, the Great Vehicle Buddhism, and then the Theravada Buddhism are a little different, where you have to have these karmic actions to be enlightened. But in Zen Buddhism, my understanding is everyone is enlightened. You just need to figure out that you are.
That's really interesting. And I can see that compatibility with Christianity that believes in what we call salvific grace, something coming from outside of us that we say yes to.
I see.
And but I'll say two things about just the overall compatibility, and it kind of goes to what you said just when we started this part of the conversation, which is there's this relationship I have in prayer. I experienced it really fully during COVID. I found COVID very liberating because everything was being taken away.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, we couldn't go anywhere. We couldn't do anything. I couldn't fly home to see my family from Colorado to New York. That was very painful. I was just getting over a breakup from a long relationship that I've been in. And COVID really sort of put an exclamation mark on it. Like, this is done. Like, we can't even see each other. And all these things were being taken away. And I found that at the bottom of all of that, when everything was stripped out of my daily reality, there was this foundational reality. There was this greater thing at the bottom of reality that I have a relationship with. And that maybe up until then, it was pretty tenuous. It was pretty light. And here's something else that Thomas Merton, that great writer, would say. Somebody asked him once, what can I do to be better at prayer? And he said, take the time. That was it. That was the extent of the advice. And during COVID, we had nothing but time suddenly. We were all off from work. And I felt this incredible growing relationship with what I can only call the light. I think that's a word for it that people from cross religions can associate with, can understand. And it was so liberating to be able to have the time, to be able to take the time to grow that relationship with the light. Now, when you go out from that foundational belief, you are going to get into particulars where, okay, maybe I do believe something is a little different about the mechanics, something different about the spiritual physics, about how all this works. But at root, at its most foundational level, my religious practice is my communion with the light.
And I just going to say, I love how you describe that, something at the base of reality, because I feel like that does tie into Taoism and a lot of just spiritual practice in general, that you're connecting with, the source or the one consciousness or God. And it's always there. It's just sort of, you need to take the space and the time to just experience it.
Absolutely, yes, 100%. We call it the non-conditioned. We call it the unchanging, the eternal, the immutable. There is something that I have a relationship with, that light that I rely upon for everything. We forget to remember that it's crazy that we exist, that we're here at all, that there is something instead of nothing, and that I'm a part of it. In the first sentence of the Catholic Catechism, which is the teaching book of the faith, it's not the Bible. It sort of explains the Bible and explains what the faith is. It says, God created everything, existence, in an act of sheer goodness. Think about what that means. There was nothing, And in an act of sheer goodness, in gratuitous gifting, I'm giving you existence with me. There was nothing. You were not there. You did nothing to earn being alive and existing. You couldn't have because you weren't there.
Right.
You didn't earn your existence. You were given an existence. And the practice of communicating with the light is sort of like, in light of that, it's acknowledging the fact that I rely upon something else for everything. I am in need. This is all a gift. It's all a crazy gift. I was nothing, and then poof, here I am.
So you are separate from the light? Is that how you view it, or are you a part of the light?
That's a great question. Another great Catholic saint, Catherine of Siena, would say, the only real wisdom is knowing that God exists and I am not God. And I think this particular line of thinking can rub against our modern cultural sensibilities a little rough. I think certainly the Catholic, the Christian perspective on this is that I was given this life gratuitously as an utter gift. And I'm given relationship with God as an utter gift. And the point of my life is to know, love, and serve God. And participate. We also say God is love. And so if it's easier and for the sake of interreligious dialogue, the point of my life is to know, serve, and love itself. There is something that exists, that always existed, that didn't need to be brought into existence, that made me. That's my relationship with God.
Interesting. And when you say that you rely on the light or the love for everything, can you talk a little more? Like what does that mean?
Sure.
Are you in constant communication? Have you seen improvement in your life based on your conversations?
Well, my faith life is the one thing that I'm sure that I do for the sake of itself, that I don't do as a means to another end. It's kind of useless in that way, in this really glorious sense. I don't practice my faith so that I become healthy. I don't even practice my faith so that I become a better person. The most fundamental, foundational reason I practice my faith is because it's good to do. There's really no other rational act. So I'd say that's an important distinction to understand. It's not part of my health plan.
Would you say it affects your mental health?
It's not part of your ego.
If you stop practicing, do you think you'd experience anxiety or, worry around that?
Absolutely. It does have the effect of improving my overall wellness. It does have that effect. And I think it does make me a better person when I really cooperate with it. Yeah. But I don't do it because it gets me somewhere. I do it because I just do it. And I think that's when I really realized that, when I really understood that this isn't part of a scheme that is meant to magnify me, that I really grew in a much deeper relationship with God.
And what made you label this experience as Christianity? Because that's a human concept. You have this experience with this light. Then do you read about Christianity and say, oh, that's similar to this? Or like how did that connection, how was that connection made?
So I have my conversion narrative published on the National Catholic Register of how the mechanics of how this specifically happened. I'd love to give it to you to put in the details.
Yeah. I'd love to read it.
It is important how it particularly happened. So I was an atheist, and I was a philosophy major. So I was one of those really snooty, know-it-all, angry
young 20-year-old men. Yep.
The most annoying kid in class. That was me. And so I would say that in terms of my own spiritual journey, the leap from not believing in God to believing in God was a big leap. That was the hard one. That was the one where it feels like that's a total miracle that I ever got from there to there and that I actually mean it. I still think I'm crazy when I say this stuff out loud. I know how I sound sometimes in the ears of people who aren't Christian. But I think that was the bigger leap. And going from belief in God to belief in the person of Jesus, the actual historical person of Jesus, that was a smaller jump. I think when I got to God, getting to Jesus was kind of easy.
Interesting.
Even though I had, every sort of built-in bias against that belief. I was a musician when I was in my early 20s. I was on a very small record label. I put out, you can still find it on Spotify. I even put out
what are you called?
Just my name.
Okay.
There's this song on the album called Holy Smokes, and it's this dialogue of just me smoking a joint with Jesus. It was very like late teenager, early 20s, kind of juvenile. I was not what I mean to say is I wasn't a reverent person. I thought belief in Jesus was really silly. And once I believed in God, that God existed, that God made creation, that we are not just a chaotic jumble of atoms, but that this reality is a sublimely choreographed dance. When I got from one to the other, suddenly Jesus seemed incredibly possible, and then probable. But that also came through some personal experience, some things I can't totally rationalize and explain. But I believe in God. That's one. Two is I believe that there was a person named Jesus Christ who was not just not just a teacher, not just a great guy, not even just divine, that Jesus was and is God. So this is a very specific Christian belief, and this is if you cross this bridge, you're a Christian. If you believe that Jesus Christ is God.
Do you believe that he literally turned water to wine?
I know fully how crazy it sounds that I do, but I do. And I actually think it's an interesting thing about the wedding at Cana, where he turned water into wine. That was the first of his miracles. That was the number one. That was how he introduced himself sort of as God to the public. And this was actually the gospel reading that my wife and I at our wedding, not just because it had to do with weddings, but because God introduced himself as a person, as God, in celebration. It was a party. It was something beautiful. It was something to be celebrated. Something to celebrate for days. And why did the wine run out at that wedding? There actually is an answer to this. It's because Jesus went and brought all of his apostles. So he gate crashed with 12 guys. And they knew and they believed that Jesus was God. And so they were celebrating. To me, it's this unbelievably beautiful, poetic. It pulls at sort of the river of my heart. So strong to think that that's how God said hello to me.
Timing it that way, to come out 20,000, 24 years ago. Like, why did Jesus decide, or God decide to be born then as a human?
It's a great question.
Like, why that time?
That's an absolutely great question. So is 2000, let's see, Jesus would have died in, I think they say around 33 AD. So yeah, just a little over 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
So you have to understand the answer to that question, you have to understand the story of Israel. And what is Israel? Who are the Jewish people? Because the coming of the Messiah, of the Mashiach, of Jesus, that is a culmination of Jewish prophecy. And it does have a very specific meaning why it happened at that particular time after that string of events. It's not so much that it was meaningful that it happened in the year 33, more so that all of these points in history that were prophesied in the Israeli holy text were fulfilled at that time.
Okay.
And so who were the people of Israel? This is really important to understanding Jesus. The people of Israel, we often say, were God's chosen people. And the reason we say that isn't because they were the good ones and everybody else is going to hell, or they were the saved ones and everybody else is being annihilated. Israel was chosen as the teachers of humanity about the nature of God. They were the chosen people to bring God's kingdom into the world. And so, the answer to this is so much bigger, obviously. I would have to to adequately answer it, say, and then Noah's Ark happened, and then this happened, and this happened, and this happened. Then Moses, to get all the way to Jesus, then King David. And that would take forever. But I'd say just as sort of a way of explaining from 20,000 feet that it's the culmination of Jewish prophecy.
Interesting. And so in your mind, is Jesus really like the way for the average human to understand and have a relationship with God? Is that like the end point of him coming down?
Here's the difference between Jesus and every other religious founder. Jesus would say literally, and he says this in the gospel, I am the way, the truth, and the life. It's much different than Buddha, who would say, here is the way to the truth and to life. Or Muhammad would say, here is the prescription. Here are the 10 steps you need to take in order to live a holy life. Jesus doesn't say that. That's why we don't think Jesus is primarily a teacher. We think he's primarily God, because he would say, not what I'm saying. I am the way. I am the truth, and I am the way. And so, because Jesus makes you make that decision, he compels a decision out of you in a way that no other religious founder or philosopher would do. He makes you have to decide in your heart. Either he is who he says he is. Is he the way, the truth, and the life? Or is he psychopathic and a bad guy and a liar? Because it can't be both.
Right.
He either is who he said he was or he's not. And so this is another, some people, I know a lot of people would think of this as a pretty major stumbling block, because Christianity is not primarily a set of beliefs. It's not primarily a set of beliefs. It's not primarily a doctrine or a moral system. Christianity is primarily a relationship with the person we believe was and is God.
Interesting.
So I hope that helps differentiate.
No, it does. And I love delving into this kind of stuff too. So I appreciate it. I think the one thing that has stopped me from really delving into Christianity is the whole idea of sin and how Jesus died. Like, why add all and make us, born shitty people? Like, I get that people do shitty things and stuff, but does that part of Christianity really speak to you, or is that a crucial part of his teachings?
Well, it is. It is a crucial part of his teaching, and I want to say that I fully understand. I think I fully understand why that's such a major stumbling.
It's like, why would he create us?
Yeah. Why would he create us to fall?
Right.
Why would he create us to fall? If the Christian Jewish narrative is true, God created people knowing that they would turn against him and become shitty people. And now we need the death on the cross to redeem us. That's the sticking point you're having. Here's the answer to that. The best I can do that's not a 5-hour answer. What were the alternatives for God if he wanted to be in a loving, free relationship? It would have to... Another question to get into this answer might be something like, why didn't God make us robots? Why didn't he make us people who were programmed to love one another and him? Why didn't he do that? Because, and this is what Christian theologians, apologists have said for centuries, he didn't do that because that would be short of love in return. If you weren't broken and fallen, if you weren't free, if you didn't have true free will, which comes as the result of creation and the fall, if you didn't have true free will, you couldn't love him in return. You would just do it. He wants us to choose him. It's very romantic at the bottom. Christianity.
It makes sense, though. It makes sense.
Yeah. If he programmed us to just be good and we loved him, if we loved him back because he programmed us that way, would that be real love?
Right.
So
yeah, we technically wouldn't have free will.
Right. It makes us, so we were made flawed and broken and fallen so that we have the opportunity to say yes to love. And that is, I think that makes this the most beautiful of all universes and existences, because I am broken, because I need love, because I say yes to it despite all of that.
Interesting. I do understand what you're saying, and it does add another layer to the human aspect of it. Like you're not just this, I guess, worshiping person that was created by God.
Right. And sin. Okay, you mentioned sin.
Yeah, I guess to clarify a little bit, I just feel like sometimes the Christian, especially the Catholic religion, is very, at least for me, as it was like, you're bad, repent, you're bad. And that felt bad for me. But I guess as a kid, I didn't really understand it that well.
You grew up Catholic?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. And so you were kind of, okay, I feel like I lucked out by missing the childhood part of it, by coming to it as an adult. Because
having it like taught to you by your parents who might not be as tuned, like not really fully understanding it, like that sort of was my experience. So
I completely understand that. I can't imagine that I would have felt any differently had I been raised that way, particularly in the Catholic Church. So sin, it's really important to understand what we mean by that word, because until we get to this definition, I feel like we're stuck. Christian thought and secular thought is just, we're at this breaking point. We can't communicate through this. Sin in its original Greek, the word sin means to miss the mark. Literally to miss the mark. So you think of if you think of a bullseye, and the perfect middle where you shoot your arrow, if you hit that perfect middle, you haven't sinned. You haven't missed the mark.
Interesting.
And so the bar is extraordinarily high. The bar is extraordinarily high. If you feel shame because you haven't missed the mark, it probably means that you need a little bit more work on understanding the mercy of God, who is all merciful and all loving. But also understand, on the same token, that the bar is really, really high for a reason. Jesus says in the Gospels, "Be perfect as my Heavenly Father is perfect." It's high because, again, I want to go back to that love language. I want to go back to that language of romance. Jesus doesn't want us to be, God doesn't want us to be ordinary. And he doesn't want us to be average. He doesn't want the love we give back to him and the love we give to each other to be mediocre and okay. He doesn't want us to be good enough. He wants all of us. He wants our entire heart. He wants our entire mind, our entire concentration. He wants our bodies. He wants all of us. And sin, he sets that mark really, really high for that reason. Now, the Catholic tradition has some variations of sin. I'm sure most people listening to this will know, well, they've heard the difference. Okay, that's a mortal sin. That's a venial sin.
Right.
And those distinctions are really important for someone who is trying to grow in sort of grow in greater understanding and practice of the faith. But I think we need to understand that sin is missing the perfect mark before we can get to that other stuff. So in that respect, in that light, why is this other thing a sin? And aren't I really judgmental if I say that's a sin? You'd say that's the other sort of huge stumbling block, right? And yeah, that's a really, really tough one. Because we are called to respond to people with the fullness of love. But as we know, just from the experience of being children, our parents we couldn't say that our parents were giving us full love if they let us do whatever we wanted. There are restrictions, there are rules, because they want us to be excellent. They want us to grow into excellence in all these different ways. Intellectual excellence, moral excellence, physical excellence. And so these parameters are put in place to guide people toward that excellent mark, toward that hitting of the middle, toward the not sin bullseye. And you think of it like this: if you wanted to be a great basketball player, you just were dead set on it. I want to be a great basketball player, but you didn't know the dribbling rules, or you didn't know where the out of bounds lines were. There's no way you could ever grow into excellence as a basketball player. So whereas, I understand the attitude in which you were saying in the beginning, it's all, no, don't do this, you're a bad person. And really bad preachers, really bad priests, really bad leaders in the faith communicate it that way.
Yeah, and I 100% understand where you're coming, and it makes more sense, hearing it said as you just did. I think the only thing that really irked me as a kid is the idea that you're born sinful without doing anything, like you're just bad to begin with. But
you better cut that foreskin off or you're bad.
I don't think that's Christianity.
No, it is. I know it's Judaism. Yeah.
Judaism had a lot of what were known as holiness codes, purity laws. A lot of it had to do with health, with physical health.
Yeah.
Like when you couldn't check.
The modern mind can see that as like, oh, so you didn't eat shellfish because God said it was evil. That's really dumb. But, at the time, another thing to see the progression of ancient Israel, of the story of humanity all the way to today. Some people, atheists in particular, even atheists I really love listening to, will say, they'll sort of challenge their listeners and say, why was God such a terrible guy in the Old Testament? And then he turned into such a nice guy with Jesus. What was that progression? If he's God and he doesn't change, what happened there? He was, flooding the world and annihilating villages, and now he's dying for us on the cross. Like, how do you square that?
Yeah.
I want to go back to the analogy I was making about raising a kid. You set parameters in such a way that they grow in excellence. You don't let somebody do whatever they want. That's not freedom in the Christian mind, in the Christian worldview. It's not freedom to do whatever you want. You're free when you are doing something great. You're free when you have freedom for excellence. So you set the parameters for that reason, but also as a child grows from 1 year to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5, you speak to them differently. You speak to them differently. You adopt a different tone. You take different. You don't change your overall moral view. God didn't change his overall moral view from the Old Testament to the New Testament. He just maybe spoke to us differently because we were at a different spiritual age, beginning 7,000 years ago in ancient Israel. Humanity progressed in understanding, and so at different times, he doesn't change what he's saying, but he'll emphasize different things in different times, the same way our parents will as we mature.
I like that, and that makes sense. Humanity is growing as we did. Young humanity, we learn, we develop, we need different things. That makes sense. And I just love how pretty much all the major religions on earth can sort of be whittled down to those basic truths and connected. It's fascinating to me because the study of religion, if you really go deep into it all, how it all connects is really cool, and how it sprung up all over the world sort of speaks to truth in it, honestly. And I just read this awesome book called The UFO of God that delves into UFO sightings going back thousands of years, and angels and UFOs, and that adds a whole nother spin to it that I want to get into. Not saying that Jesus or God is UFO, but I think it could be tied in somehow. I don't know, and I just don't know.
Yeah, that's something
I love it.
I don't have my mind wrapped around, but I'm certainly not against. I think that when you try to put God in, and we call it salvation history, that period of God revealing himself to us, when you try to put him in a box, he has a way of breaking out. And so I could totally see this is something I've said to friends casually a million times. I don't know if those are aliens. They might be time travelers. They might be spiritual entities. It could
or
be
angels, or
angels,
dimension.
Could be demons. I believe in the
dimension.
demonic. I believe in demonic forces. I believe that those are real.
Yeah, that's the one thing I was gonna follow up to with sin, is the whole idea of hell and how you sort of like come to terms with that.
Yeah, or like Jeff and Lorraine Warren, like the Amityville horror people.
Yeah.
You believe them,
I don't
like
know about
demonologists, right?
Yeah, I'd love to hear your thought on demons, though, and how they tie in.
And demonology.
If you have time, I know we're running up on time here.
No, it's fine. Let me start with hell, and then a little bit on demons.
Sounds great, and we'll wrap up.
Yeah. Here's what we believe hell is. This is maybe the most misunderstood thing in popular culture, secular culture, about Christian belief. People, I think 9 out of 10, maybe 10 out of 10, would say that they think hell is the punishment God gives to people who didn't live a life worthy of heaven.
What is hell? Is it like Dante's Inferno?
He's explaining.
So I'm getting into that too.
I'm trying to picture it. Like, is it red? Is it fiery?
We don't know.
So those may be images. But hell, the important thing to know about hell is that it's not a punishment, and it's not a place God sends you. God doesn't send anyone to hell. We choose hell. C.S. Lewis, who wrote the Narnia Chronicles and was also a great religious writer, he would say that hell is a place where the door locks from the inside. You weren't sent there as a punishment. You went there freely. And you went there freely by choosing against love, by completely separating yourself, by separating yourself from God, by separating yourself from everyone else. Hell is a place of extreme isolation. It is a place where, and we think of the self-centeredness of our world. This is something I always try to get across to my students. When you're looking inward and you're only focused on yourself, you're in hell. It's a place where you're alone. When you go out with love toward the world, toward others, that's heaven. That's when you are in communion, in love with other people, with God. So it's really important to understand that conception of hell. And that's not me putting a nice spin on hell. That's been the classical, that's what we've always taught. That's what we taught in the 4th century with St. Augustine. That's what we taught.
Really?
That's not a happy new. It's just
you're right that it's so misunderstood, because I think everyone I've heard talk about it does think that God sends you, and I love how it's just a little shift in perspective that it's not God. He's the one trying to save you.
It's the same way we say that we're free to choose love, we're free to choose God, and that's why we're fallen. The consequences of hell have to exist if I'm free. If I'm really free, that has to be a possibility. I'm free to say no to love completely. I'm free to deny everything. I'm free to just get just me. Is hell, are demons, is it hot? Is it red? I think that the studies, the near-death experience studies, are interesting. I don't swallow them whole. I don't swallow them whole, but they're interesting because
I've gotten into those too. Yeah,
they're like systematized in this new way, which is really cool. Dante, you brought up Dante. Dante would say that the worst part of hell is not hot. The worst part of hell is frozen solid. Because when you're frozen solid, you can't move. You are absolutely stuck. You are stuck in place forever. You have conditioned yourself to frozenness. Your heart is cold. So that image chills me. It makes me way more fearful. And I am afraid of hell. It makes me way more fearful than the burning hot forever.
Interesting.
That's
and so how does demons play? I know we're running up here against time, but how does your interpretation of demons affect our daily lives, or if not affect our daily lives? Like, what are they, and do they have anything to do with UFOs?
I think they absolutely could. I don't know any. I have nothing to base that on.
Have you? Sorry to interrupt. Have you heard that radio caller? I gotta send this to you.
No.
And he's escaping from, and I don't know if this is real, but he sounds terrified. He's escaping from a top secret in the middle of the country. He worked for them, and he's saying, I need to tell you the secrets of the UFOs. Like they're tracking me. The government's tracking me. They're gonna kill me. But they're not UFOs. They're dark spirits, and they're breaking into our world. And like, this is why the government's covering it up and all that stuff. And it's really creepy to hear because this guy is terrified.
You have to send that to me.
I will. I call too. It's real.
There's been like tape recordings of demons from exorcisms and stuff like that. I've listened to them, and there are I think a lot of exorcism stuff is kind of junky, kind of dumb, but there are some that really are just totally inexplicable and seem authentic. When I hear that voice coming out of them, I maybe wouldn't recommend it to people. Don't watch it unless you're like this spiritual superhero who's like so solid and can't be affected. I don't know if it's good to how much we intake of that. Like the stuff we intake with our eyes, it's like it's a diet like anything else. And I don't know.
What would be the video to watch? Like, is there?
It's bone chilling, dude. It's bone chilling.
Like, is there?
I want to hear this thing.
No, I'll find it. It's really good. I'll send it to you on Twitter.
Let me send you some exorcism stuff. Let me see what's real and what isn't. Because there's just so many hucksters out there. But demons are fallen creatures. I mean, they're sort of a necessary component of this whole spiritual stew that I've been talking about. And they hate you. Do not underestimate. I can't say that I'm like, that doesn't really enter into my faith life too much.
Yeah. That's good.
Like thinking about this stuff. I know some people are really into it, but for me, it's just, be careful.
I feel like thinking about it just gives it power, and
there
was that Russell Crowe movie. He's gotten quite large.
Oh, that was really good.
He's like the priest. He's like a demon.
That movie is incredible.
Yeah, I think he was supposed to be playing the Pope's exorcist.
Yeah, that's it. The Pope's Exorcist. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a guy. He was really famous. I think his name was Gabriel Amorth.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
He was the Vatican exorcist for a bunch of like 40 years.
Interesting.
You know like this. Right? So I volunteer at my local church youth group, and last year we had the exorcist, the chief exorcist of the whole region of New England, come in and we scared them straight. Yeah, Ouija boards. We've got some stories about Ouija boards.
Really?
It'd be good to have a priest who does exorcisms. That'd be a good interview.
Yeah,
I might be able to hook that up.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
That would be great. That would be great.
That'd be super cool. Yeah,
that would be awesome.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah,
and I love talking, like delving into all this kind of stuff, and I'm glad we spent some time on it. We'd love to have you back on to like maybe do part 2. You know?
Yeah.
Because I was, as you were talking, I was thinking of a bunch of old books that I've come across in the past that I'd love to ask you about. Like one was talking about how Jesus's life before he turned 33, before the Bible picks up.
There's a John Prine song about Jesus, the missing years.
Cool. I didn't know that. Love John
Check
Prine.
that song. It's a hilarious John Prine song. Yeah, it sounds like the song you wrote, actually.
I promise it was much better.
No, but it's a good one. Yeah, Jesus, the missing years. Check it out. It's about like him, like 4 into his 30s or whatever. Like right, once this is written.
Another really cool religious song from a great singer. There's "When the Man Comes Around" by Johnny Cash. If you want to hear,
I love Johnny Cash.
A seriously like really good, solid, orthodox religious song.
Okay.
"When the Man Comes Around" by Johnny Cash. It is bone rattling.
Do you but before we wrap up, do you have any literature, or if someone listened to this conversation, they're interested in dipping their toes into Catholic philosophy, what do you recommend they start with besides like the Bible?
That's a great question. So maybe just Christian theology. He was close to a Catholic in a lot of ways. C.S. Lewis wrote a book in the 40s, I think, called Mere Christianity. That is probably the best modern example of somebody. This is like the greatest introduction you ever could come across.
Awesome.
For specifically Catholic, would be an introductory book.
You mentioned an author earlier.
Yeah, I'll go back to him. Thomas Merton. He wrote his spiritual biography called 7 Story Mountain. It's one of my favorite books ever written.
7 Story Mountain. Okay. I'm writing all these down here so we can put them in the description.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm gonna buy both of these. They're only $12.
That's great. If I think of any others, I'll shoot them to you.
Cool.
There's so much great Catholic literature. They say Catholics make great writers because of their constant awareness of guilt, and how that sort of maybe enriches character development in a novel.
Interesting.
There's a lot of really great Catholic authors.
My brother.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, my brother just got married to a very Catholic family, and they had a beautiful wedding in a cathedral. And walking in there, I was the best man. Walking in there, I was just struck by the beauty and the reverence and the statues. It sort of made me pause and be like, "Am I missing something here?" So that I'm gonna read these.
Another purely romantic reason to be a Christian is that it's the most beautiful story imaginable if it's true. I couldn't imagine a more beautiful story. And that's what the church is. That's what the cathedrals, the saints, the beautiful things of the faith, they're meant to reflect this just, I don't go to Mass on Sunday because I have to. I go because I'm in love. And period. Like I'm absolutely in love with the light of Jesus. I believe in it. I can't believe that I believe that. I can't believe that I believe
Mm-hmm.
God became a person
Mm-hmm.
who loves me. I can't believe that, but I do. And so all of beautiful Catholic art is a reflection of that back out.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Cool. Well, I'll send you some of the books I had in mind too. I'd love just to hear your initial thought on them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, we'd love to do this again. Do
Please,
part 2. Maybe bring on the Exorcist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get into the dirty.
Demons, yeah.
If there's anybody that's like, hey, I want Pete to debate this person, I love a debate.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we should find some atheists.
It's harder to find atheists online.
It is, yeah, because they have no passion. That is true. That is true.
Yeah, no, it's true.
Biggest platform.
Yeah, we sort of tried to host a debate like a month ago, and both the people were just, we were like, okay.
Well,
we'll work on it though. We'll work on it.
Thank you guys so much for having me on. This is an absolute joy.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. Yeah, we had a blast.
Love you guys.
Thank you.
Wow, that was our most religious episode ever.
Dude, I love religion and philosophy. I know you think it's boring, but people.
And when we wrap this up, you'll be hearing our new outro. This episode will drop Thursday if you're watching live on Twitter. Bitches, peace out. We're gonna do a song called Ohio by We're gonna do a song called Ohio by